Okay, now it's time to embellish the wreath, and I'm going to see if I can do a border on the inside, and I want to work into this loop right here so it lays flat against the wall. The border will lay flat against the wall. So this is the right side of the wreath, so I'm going to turn it over, and this is the side that would lay flat against the wall or the door. And I'm only going to be working in one of the loops. So here's the single crochet that we did, and here's the two loops that are on top of the single crochet. I'm just going to be working into this front one right here. So I've got a 550 millimeter hook, and I've got 4 medium weight yarn, and I'm just going to form a slip knot by putting the short end over the long end and pull the long end through to form a loop. Then I'm going to put my hook in and hold on to the long end and tighten it up. Now I'm just going to pick any stitch to start with, and I'm just going to slip stitch onto this one loop right here. And so I'm just going to put my hook in, I'm going to grab onto the yarn, I'm going to pull it up, and I'm just going to slip stitch it onto the loop that's already on the hook. So I'm just going to pull it through like that for a slip stitch. Now I'm going to chain 3. Here's 1, 2, 3. I'm going to skip a stitch, and then I'm going to slip stitch onto the next stitch. Okay, I'm going to chain 3. You just put the yarn over the hook and pull it through. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to skip a stitch, go on to the next stitch, and slip stitch it onto that one loop. I'm going to do this all the way around the wreath. Okay, now I'm at the end, and it worked out perfect for me where I just skip one and go to the next one. Okay, from here I'm just going to slip stitch into this chain space. So I'm just going to put my hook in through here, and pull it through, and I'm just going to slip stitch onto that chain. Then I'm going to chain 2. There's 1, 2. Now I'm going to do a half double crochet into the same chain space. So I'm going to put my yarn over the hook, put my hook through that chain space, grab onto the yarn and pull it through and up where I have 3 loops on the hook now. Wrap my yarn over the hook, and I'm going to pull through all 3 of those loops for a half double crochet. Now this chain 2 is going to act like a half double crochet. So we've got 2 half double crochets onto this chain space. Now I'm going to chain 2. Here's 1, 2, and I'm going to put 2 more half double crochets into the same chain space. So I'm going to wrap my yarn over the hook, put my hook through the chain space, pull up the yarn, yarn over, and I'm going to pull through all 3 of those loops. And I'm going to do another one, so I'm just going to yarn over, put my hook into the chain space, pull up that yarn, and pull it up where I've got 3 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops. And now the very next chain space, I'm going to just slip stitch onto it. So I'm just going to put my hook through the next chain space, pull the yarn up, and I'm just going to pull it through that loop that's already on the hook to slip stitch it on. Now from here I'm going to do a half double crochet into the next chain space. So I'm going to put my yarn over the hook, put my hook through the chain space, pull the yarn through, yarn over, and pull through all 3 of those loops. I'm going to do another half double crochet, yarn over, put my hook through the same chain space, pull the yarn up and through it. Now I've got 3 loops on the hook, wrap my yarn over the hook and pull through all 3. Now I've got 2 half double crochets on that chain space. I'm going to chain 2. Here's 1, 2. Now I'm going to put 2 more half double crochets into that same chain space right there. So I'm going to yarn over, put my hook through the chain space, pull the yarn up, yarn over, and pull through all 3 of the loops. Yarn over, put my hook through the same chain space, pull the yarn up, yarn over, and pull through all 3 of those loops. Now the next chain space I'm just going to slip stitch into. So I'm going to go into this very next chain space, and I'm just going to do a slip stitch right into it, just like that. Now the next chain space I'm going to do a half double crochet. So I'm going to yarn over, put my hook through the next chain space, pull my yarn up, yarn over, pull through all 3 of those loops. For a half double crochet, I'm going to do another half double crochet into the same chain space. Now I've got 2 half double crochets on this chain space. I'm going to chain 2, 1, 2. Now I'm going to put 2 more half double crochets into the same chain space. So yarn over, put your hook through the chain space, pull your yarn up, pull through all 3 of those loops. Oops, I have to do it again. Okay, 1 more into the same chain space. Okay, now I'm going to go to the next chain space, and I'm just going to slip stitch onto it. Okay, now I'm going to do a half double crochet into the next chain space. Okay, another half double crochet into the same chain space. Chain 2, 1, 2, 2 half double crochets into the same chain space. Okay, now I'm going to go to the next chain space and I'm just going to slip stitch onto it. Go to the next chain space and do a half double crochet. Okay, one more half double crochet into the same chain space. Chain 2, 1, 2. Now 2 more half double crochets into the same chain space. Okay, now I'm going to go to the next chain space and slip stitch onto it. And I'm going to do a half double crochet into the next chain space. Another half double crochet into the same chain space. Chain 2. And now 2 more half double crochets into the same chain space. There's 1, and 2. Now I'm going to go to the next chain space and I'm going to slip stitch onto it. And now I'm going to do a half double crochet into the next chain space. Now I'm going to do another half double crochet into the same chain space. Now I'm going to chain 2. Now I'm going to put 2 more half double crochets into the same chain space. Okay, next chain space, we're just going to slip stitch onto it. And then I'm going to do a half double crochet into the next chain space. Okay, another half double crochet into that same chain space. Chain 2, 1, 2, and 2 more half double crochets into that chain space. One, 2. Okay, now the next one is already done, so I'm just going to slip stitch it. This is where we first cast it on, and we did a slip stitch onto it. So I'm just going to slip stitch onto that slip stitch. And I'm going to chain 1 and tighten it up so the work doesn't come out. I'm going to turn it back over here to see how it's looking. So it kind of looks like I have a star in there now. Okay, I'm going to try to make a burlap bow. And the last video I forgot to cut this off. So I'm just going to cut this off, pull it through, and then I can weave these into the work right here and trim them off. Right now I'm just going to trim them off. Okay, I've got this burlap sack, and it was a fat wood sack for the firewood, and it's already round and sewn, so I'm going to try to make a bow out of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut off this bottom part where it's sewn right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut that off. Trim it up just a little bit so it's straight. Okay, now I'm just going to do a couple inches and I'm going to cut it across again. And then on the top part of the sack, it's got this cord. So I'm going to pull this cord out of the sack. There we go. That way you can't see the fat wood on there. So I'm just going to fold it. Okay, so here I have my piece right here that I cut off the bag. Now, I want my bow to be a little smaller, so I'm just going to fold it in half like this. And I'm going to take the cord that I got from the bag, and I'm just going to squish this like that, and I'm just going to tie it up with this cord. So I'm just going to put a knot in it. So there's my bow. Now I can put my bow on my wreath. So I'm just going to put this cord through, I'm just going to put it through one of these loops. Like this. Then I'm just going to tie it on. Tie it together. So I'm just going to put them both in the front like this, wrap them around my finger, and I'm just going to pull that cord as close to the bow as I can. So both of those will come down in the front. And now I can just cut these off a little bit. So there's my wreath.